The first error is the last error you will make. In the precise calculus of survival, the asphalt road is no longer a surface for travel. It is a linear kill mechanism engineered by your own dependence on the old world. You must accept immediately that the margin of error is zero, and that the map you have memorized is now a blueprint for your extinction. Crowd psychology dictates that panic flows like water, following the path of least resistance directly into a choke point, and this herd behavior guarantees that every highway will calcify into a static monument to stupidity. This is not gridlock. It is a biological trap where density defies physics, turning the population into a captive audience for violence. If you step onto the pavement, you are broadcasting your position to every predator scanning the horizon for a loot drop. The stationary vehicle is a coffin, and you are merely the calories inside it waiting to be claimed. To survive, you must excise the concept of the street from your neural architecture and treat the city as a hostile kill box where visibility equals death. The strategy requires a total inversion of your navigational logic. You do not follow the lines drawn by civil engineers. You exploit the friction zones, the neglected easements, and the structural voids that the herd ignores. You are not escaping through the city. You are moving underneath and through its skeleton. You are descending into the city's circulatory system to bypass the necrosis on the surface. The underground network, storm drains, utility tunnels, and maintenance mains offers the only route where the mob cannot reach you. But do not mistake this isolation for safety. You are trading the certainty of human violence for environmental hazards that do not negotiate. These systems were built to move waste and water, not people. If you enter this domain without respecting its rules, the tunnel itself will execute you with far greater efficiency than any weapon. The air down here is a silent killer. In the absence of ventilation, deadly gases do not mix. They settle in invisible layers. Methane is lighter than air and floats in pockets near the ceiling, creating a zone where a single spark triggers an immediate explosion. Even more dangerous is hydrogen sulfide, a byproduct of rot that sinks to the floor where you are walking. It is a nerve agent that smells like rotten eggs at first, but in high concentrations it paralyzes your sense of smell instantly. You will think the air is clear seconds before you collapse. You cannot trust your senses here. You must carry a gas monitor. Entering a confined space without one is not a risk. It is a suicide attempt. The water is just as deadly as the air. A storm drain is effectively a loaded hydraulic cannon. A rainstorm 10 miles away can channel a wall of water moving at 40 miles per hour through your sector, even if the sky above you is clear. Inside a pipe, there is no riverbank to swim to and no way to climb out. The pressure of that water will crush you against the concrete long before you drown. You must track the weather patterns for the entire watershed, not just your immediate location. If there is rain anywhere on the map, the underground is a no-go zone. Visual discipline is the difference between being a ghost and being a target. In the absolute pitch black of a tunnel, a standard white flashlight acts like a beacon, announcing your presence for miles down the straight concrete bore. You need to suppress the instinct to light up the dark. Use a red light on the lowest possible setting, just enough to see where you place your feet. Your eyes need about 30 minutes to fully adjust to the dark. One mistake with a bright light will blind you, stripping away your night vision and leaving you vulnerable. Navigate by touch as much as by sight. Keep one hand on the wall and move with silence. The psychological weight of the underground is crushing. The acoustics are distorted, turning distant drips into the sound of footsteps, which breeds paranoia. You cannot let fear stop you. Do not linger, and do not sleep here. This is a transit corridor. not a shelter. Every minute you spend below ground increases your exposure to toxic gas and structural collapse. You are moving through the intestines of a dying city to reach your exit point. Keep moving, stay quiet, and get out. Most people view the city as a simple grid of streets and buildings, but there is a second invisible map hidden in plain sight. This is the network of linear infrastructure, railway cuts, high-tension power line easements, and industrial canals. While the main roads are transforming into death traps filled with panicked crowds and burning cars, these industrial corridors remain empty. This is the paradox you must exploit. The ugly industrial scars of the city are now your safest path, because the herd is too conditioned to see them as escape routes. They are looking for a highway. You are looking for the spaces in between. The mob will instinctively stay on the pavement because it is the only world they understand, leaving these shadow routes wide open for you. Consider the railway lines first. These tracks were engineered to cut straight through the urban sprawl, ignoring traffic patterns and neighborhoods. They are direct vectors out of the danger zone. However, you must never walk between the rails. The crushed stone ballast is loud. Every step creates a crunching sound that travels much further than you think. Furthermore, standing on the tracks makes you a perfect target in a long, straight shooting gallery. Instead, you move along the maintenance easement on the side, hugging the tree line or the fence. You are using the brush to break up your outline. This is the essence of the gray man principle. You are not trying to be invisible. You are trying to be uninteresting, blending into the background clutter that the human eye naturally skips over. High-tension power line cuts are equally valuable. These wide strips of land are cleared of trees and buildings, creating a direct highway of grass and dirt that often leads straight into the rural outskirts. The massive pylons act as navigational beacons, guiding you away from the city center without the need for a map. The mob will not follow you here. They are psychologically tethered to the pavement and terrified of the unknown. But this open space demands discipline. Because the terrain is flat and clear, you are exposed to anyone watching from a distance. You cannot walk in the center of the clearing. You must stick to the edges where the shadows are deepest. If you hear a vehicle or a drone, you freeze. Movement attracts the eye faster than color or shape. Industrial canals and concrete storm channels offer a different advantage. These are effectively sunken roads, sitting 10 to 20 feet below street level. When you move along the dry concrete banks of a canal, you are physically separated from the chaos on the surface. The retaining walls block your view of the city, but more importantly, they block the city's view of you. You are moving in a trench. However, every bridge you pass under is a potential choke point. Bridges provide shelter for others and are natural spots for ambushes. Never walk blindly into the darkness under an overpass. Stop. Listen and check for silhouettes before you cross the shadow line. The reason these routes are safe is simple. Modern humans are conditioned to comfort and compliance. Tall grass, mud, fences, and keep out signs act as massive psychological barriers. The average person will sit in a lethal traffic jam for hours rather than climb a fence and walk through a muddy ditch. This hesitation is your window of opportunity. By the time the herd realizes the road is a dead end, you will be miles away. The most critical rule in these open spaces is silhouette discipline. In a low-light environment, the sky is usually lighter than the ground. If you walk along the top of a ridge or a railway embankment, your body creates a sharp black cutout against the sky. Anyone looking up will see you instantly. You must always stay off the skyline. Move along the slope, keeping the earth behind you to mask your shape. You want to look like a bush, a rock, or a shadow, never a human. The old world taught you to walk tall and stay on the path. Survival requires you to crawl in the dirt and hug the shadows. While the masses destroy themselves on the highway, you are ghosting through the industrial skeleton of the city, unnoticed and untouched. You are now entering the friction zone. Eventually, the rail lines and power cuts will terminate or deviate from your vector, forcing you to navigate the residential and commercial hardscape. This is the most physically demanding phase of the escape because you are moving against the grain of the city's design. The old world was built to channel movement through streets and sidewalks, but you are rejecting that flow to straight line through the urban clutter. This means navigating a chaotic sequence of backyards, alleyways, retaining walls, and commercial loading docks. You must understand the physics of this environment. It is not flat ground. It is a series of vertical and horizontal barriers designed to stop you. The first variable you must manage is calorie bankruptcy. In a survival scenario, your body is an engine with a limited fuel supply, and the hardscape is designed to drain it. Walking 5 miles on a paved road is metabolically cheap. Moving 5 miles through residential blocks, climbing fences, scrambling up embankments, and pushing through hedges consumes energy at an exponential rate. If you attempt to climb every 6-foot privacy fence you encounter, you will reach physical failure within hours. Biology dictates that you cannot sustain high-output anaerobic activity without caloric replacement, which you likely do not have. Therefore, you do not climb if you can breach. You must carry a tool capable of defeating chain link and wood, compact bolt cutters, or a prying tool. You are not an athlete clearing hurdles. You are an engineer dismantling obstacles. Breach the fence low to maintain cover. Slide through and conserve your vertical energy. Every calorie spent lifting your body weight over a wall is a calorie borrowed from your future survival. This brings us to the concept of the loot drop. The single most common failure point for those attempting to escape on foot is the psychological inability to prioritize weight. You have likely packed for a camping trip, filling a massive rucksack with gear for every hypothetical scenario. In the hardscape, that pack is a parasite. Physics is unforgiving. Mass times acceleration equals force, but mass also equals friction and fatigue. A heavy pack alters your center of gravity, making you clumsy and prone to injury when navigating uneven terrain like wet concrete or debris piles. A twisted ankle in this zone is a terminal event. Furthermore, a large tactical backpack signals to every observer that you possess valuable resources. You become a walking supply crate for anyone with a weapon. You must ruthlessly apply the multiplier rule to your gear. If an item does not have an immediate life-sustaining function, it is dead weight. You must look like a scavenger, not a soldier. Your profile should be small, non-threatening, and unworthy of a second glance. Navigating the hardscape also requires you to understand the crowd psychology of property. In the initial phases of collapse, homeowners will be hyper-focused on their front doors and driveways, the traditional avenues of approach. They will be guarding the street. They generally do not expect a threat to emerge from the rear corner of their backyard or through a dense hedge. You exploit this blind spot. However, you must move with absolute silence to avoid triggering the biological alarm systems. Dogs. A barking dog compromises your position instantly and draws attention to the one place you are trying to remain invisible. If you encounter a yard with a dog, do not attempt to cross it. Backtrack and bypass. The time lost is worth the preservation of your stealth. Finally, you must read the terrain for micro-terrain advantages. Use the shadows of buildings to mask your movement. Avoid the center of any open space, even a backyard. Hug the walls. Human vision is drawn to movement in open fields, but it struggles to distinguish movement against a complex background like a brick wall or a trellis. You are utilizing the clutter of the city as camouflage. This is a slow, grinding process. You are not running. You are flowing through the path of least visibility. The mental discipline required to move slowly while your instincts scream at you to run is the difference between slipping through the cracks and running into a bullet. You are transversing a hostile maze, and the only way out is to become part of the background noise until you reach the perimeter. You have reached the edge of the map, the interface zone where the concrete sprawl finally bleeds into the tree line. Do not make the fatal mistake of thinking you have won. This perimeter is the most dangerous coordinate in your entire egress vector because it is predictable. The transition from urban to rural is not a gradient. It is a friction point where the desperate masses trying to escape collide with the local predators waiting to intercept them. This is the ambush zone. The roads that lead out of the city are effectively funnels. Every bridge, every highway overpass, and every gap in the tree line is a natural choke point. If you walk through these areas during daylight, you are volunteering for interdiction. You must apply the multiplier rule to your patience. Waiting is not inactivity. It is a tactical weapon. You must stop and go to ground in the final urban cover before the open terrain. You are now waiting for a specific biological event, the circadian nadir. The human animal is hardwired to shut down between 03 Beauregard and 05. This is the point of deepest sleep and lowest cognitive function for anyone trying to stay awake on guard duty. The visual cortex slows, reaction times degrade, and the will to scan the horizon collapses. This is your window. You do not move when you can see. You move when they cannot function. During these 2 hours, the world belongs to the disciplined. You must summon the last reserves of your caloric energy to sprint across the open gaps and breach the final perimeter while the threats behind you are biologically compromised. As you cross into the true wild, the physics of your environment shift one last time. In the city, you hid from eyes and optics. Here, you hide from instincts. In the forest, straight lines do not exist. If you walk in a straight line, you create a visual anomaly that stands out against the fractal chaos of nature. You must adjust your gait. The old world stride, heavy heel strikes and rhythmic pacing, is a liability here. You must lift your knees high to clear ground cover, placing your feet vertically to avoid snapping twigs. Sound travels differently in this medium. A snapped branch in a silent forest is an alarm bell that carries for hundreds of yards. You are entering a food chain where you are no longer the apex predator, and the margin of error is zero. The psychological danger here is the false summit. When the skyline of the city disappears behind the trees, your brain will flood with dopamine, telling you that you are safe. This chemical reaction is a lie. You are not safe. You have simply traded one set of lethal variables for another. The cold, the wet, and the caloric scarcity of the wild are slower, quieter killers than the mob, but they are just as absolute. Do not light a fire. Do not relax your perimeter. Do not celebrate. The city behind you is a burning monument to the fragility of complex systems, a massive loot drop for the unprepared. You have escaped the kill box, but you have not escaped the struggle. You have simply graduated to a more primal difficulty setting. The strategy remains the same: silence, obscurity, and the ruthless application of logic.